7 hours later, JonBenét was found in the basement. In the quiet aftermath of Christmas, on December 26, 1996, inside the Ramsey family home in Boulder, Colorado, a missing child report became one of the most studied unsolved homicide investigations in the country. A 6-year-old girl was reported missing from her own home. Hours later, her body was discovered in that same house. That contradiction has never gone away. It remains one of the details that defines the case, and one of the reasons the investigation continues to divide interpretation. The confirmed facts are limited, but they are stark. JonBenét Ramsey was found dead in the basement of her family's home. A ransom note demanding $118,000 was found inside the house. The autopsy determined that the cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation, associated with craniocerebral trauma. Those findings established the case as a homicide, but they did not settle the larger question: who was responsible, and how did the crime unfold inside the home? That question has never been answered in a courtroom. The case remains unsolved and is classified as an open homicide investigation. No one has been charged or convicted in connection with JonBenét's death. For that reason, every theory must be treated carefully. The public record contains confirmed facts, allegations, disputed interpretations, and unanswered questions. Those categories cannot be blurred. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was 6 years old when she was killed in her family's home at 755 15th Street. The house was where her mother, Patsy Ramsey, found the ransom note and reported her missing. It was also where her father, John Ramsey, later found her body in the basement. The location matters because this was not a child reported missing from one place and found somewhere far away. The entire crisis unfolded inside the family residence, turning rooms, doors, stairways, and access points into evidence. From the beginning, the home itself became the crime scene. But what that meant was never agreed upon. For some investigators and observers, the setting left room for the possibility of an intruder moving through the house. For others, the same setting raised the suspicion that the truth may have been closer to home. Those remain theories, not conclusions. The available evidence has not produced a final legal answer. What makes the basement details so difficult is not only where JonBenét was found, but when. According to the case timeline, John Ramsey discovered her body about 7 hours after the initial report. By then, the investigation had already begun as a reported kidnapping. The ransom note had pointed outward. The search had begun under the belief that JonBenét had been taken. Then the discovery in the basement changed the center of gravity. The most important evidence had remained inside the house all along. Patsy Ramsey's role in the early hours is confirmed in the record. She discovered the ransom note and reported JonBenét missing. John Ramsey's role is also confirmed. He later found the body. Burke Ramsey, JonBenét's 9-year-old brother at the time, was not considered a suspect according to statements by police and the district attorney in 1999. Beyond those verified roles, speculation does not strengthen the record. This case demands restraint because so much of its history has been shaped by competing interpretations rather than settled proof. The ransom note became one of the first anchors of the investigation. It demanded $118,000. It was found inside the house. In the earliest stage, it supported the possibility that JonBenét had been kidnapped. But when her body was found in the basement, the meaning of the note changed. Investigators and the public were left with a harder question. Was the note connected to a genuine outside threat? Was it intended to mislead, or did it reflect something else entirely? The public record does not fully answer those questions. This is where the case becomes more than a timeline. It becomes a conflict between interpretations. If an intruder entered the home and left through the basement area, why has that theory remained so disputed? If the answer was already inside the house, why has no one ever been charged or convicted? These are not questions raised for drama. They are the unresolved core of the investigation. The basement became more than a place in the house. It became the point where every theory had to confront the physical record. It was where JonBenét was found. It was also connected to one of the most debated possibilities in the case, whether someone outside the family could have entered through a basement window. That theory has been discussed for years, but it has also been challenged. Reported concerns, including the condition of cobwebs and other factors, complicated the idea of recent access. The basement did not settle the intruder question. It kept it open. At the same time, according to the record, Boulder police initially focused heavily on the Ramsey family, particularly Patsy Ramsey. One reason was the ransom note, and investigators' belief that it may have been written by her. That was an investigative theory, not a proven fact. Some investigators also believe the note and aspects of the scene may have been staged to mislead the investigation. Again, that was an allegation and an interpretation, not a courtroom conclusion. The distinction matters. In a case without a conviction, suspicion is not proof. A theory may guide an investigation, but it cannot be treated as fact unless the evidence establishes it. The early police focus shaped public perception, and it left a lasting shadow over the Ramsey family. But the legal status of the case has remained unchanged. No one has been convicted, and no one has been charged in connection with JonBenét's death. The confirmed medical findings did not resolve the broader dispute. The autopsy determined that JonBenét died from asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. That is the medical baseline of the case, but it does not identify the person responsible. It does not determine whether the crime was committed by an intruder or by someone inside the home. It establishes that JonBenét was killed. It does not answer who killed her. As the years passed, the intruder theory gained renewed attention. In 2002, District Attorney Mary Lacey took control of the case and advanced that theory. The shift mattered because it moved the official discussion away from some of the earliest family-focused suspicions and reopened the possibility that an unknown person had entered the home. The basement window remained part of that debate, but it was never a simple answer. Supporters of the theory saw it as a possible route. Critics pointed to details that made the scenario difficult to accept. Then came a forensic development that kept the case from closing around any single narrative. In 2003, trace DNA from an unknown male was found on JonBenét's clothing, and the Ramseys were excluded as contributors. That finding did not identify a killer. It did not erase earlier questions about the note or the house, but it did provide investigators with evidence that could support the possibility of an unknown male source. From that point forward, the case carried two powerful tensions at once: the suspicion created by the ransom note and the home setting, and the uncertainty created by DNA that did not match the Ramsey family. The evidence seemed to pull in different directions. One set of interpretations pointed inward, toward staging theories and family scrutiny. Another set pointed outward, toward an unidentified male. Which direction mattered most depended on how investigators weighed each piece of evidence, but none of those pieces, alone or together, produced a charge or a conviction. The legal history made the uncertainty even more visible. In 1998, a grand jury began investigating. In 1999, the grand jury voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey. But a grand jury vote is not a conviction, and it is not proof of guilt. It is a legal accusation based on a particular standard and a particular presentation of evidence. Then District Attorney Alex Hunter declined to prosecute, citing insufficient evidence to prove the charges at trial. On October 13, 1999, he announced that no indictments would be issued. That decision became one of the defining legal turns in the case. A grand jury had voted to indict, but the district attorney declined to move forward. The result was a public contradiction that has remained difficult to explain simply. It suggested that there was serious concern within the legal process, but also that prosecutors did not believe the evidence could meet the burden required in court. In legal terms, that difference is critical. Concern is not conviction. Suspicion is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The legal story did not end there. In 2002, Mary Lacy assumed control of the case and advanced the intruder theory. On March 31, 2003, a federal judge concluded that evidence was more consistent with an intruder theory than with the theory that Patsy Ramsey killed JonBenét. That conclusion did not solve the homicide, and it did not end the public argument. It did, however, mark another major turn in a case already shaped by disagreement, delay, and competing readings of the same evidence. In 2000, Patsy Ramsey died after a battle with ovarian cancer. Her death closed one chapter of the family story, but it did not close the investigation. No one had been charged or convicted in connection with JonBenét's death. The case remained open. The unanswered questions remained in place. Who wrote the ransom note? What explains the unknown male DNA? And whether the crime was committed by an intruder or by someone within the household. By December 2023, the Boulder Police Department had convened the Colorado Cold Case Review Team to re-examine the case. That step matters because it shows that authorities continued to review the evidence. The file had not disappeared. It had grown older, heavier, and more complicated. Every new review had to pass through the same unresolved points: a ransom note inside the house, a body found in the basement, a grand jury vote that did not lead to prosecution, and DNA from an unknown male that did not identify its source. And so the case returns to the detail that still refuses to settle. 7 hours after the initial report, JonBenét was found in the basement. Between the report and that discovery lies one of the central gaps in the case. The ransom note remains contested. The basement window theory remains disputed. The unknown male DNA remains unexplained. The grand jury action and the district attorney's refusal remain part of the legal record. None of it has produced a final answer. That is why the basement still matters, not because it answered the case, but because it never stopped dividing it. If the crime began with an intruder, the basement may have been part of a path into or through the home. If the crime was staged, the basement and the note take on a different meaning entirely. But the public record does not prove either theory as the final truth. It leaves a child reported missing from inside her home, and then found inside that same home, while the evidence continues to resist a single conclusion. Decades later, JonBenét Ramsey's death remains one of the most unresolved investigations in American criminal history. The facts are painful, but limited. The theories are numerous, but unproven. The legal record contains suspicion, disagreement, and unanswered questions, but no conviction. What remains is a case that still asks the same question the basement raised that morning. What did the evidence in that house reveal? And what did it still conceal? Follow Whispered Cases for a new case every week. Subscribe so you never miss one.